hey, if you grew up, with a rough background, and your parents didn't really have much money growing up, you could probably relate to this. This message is probably gonna be for you. Um, it really relates with me, and I can share with you real quick, like, my story. I don't want to go too much into detail, but I don't want to waste too much time. But my dad committed suicide when I was 3 years old. We lived in Bay City, Texas, by Houston. uh, Soon after that, like, my mom packed our stuff up and we moved to Corpus Christi, Texas. And I basically, we started a new life there with me, my mom, my sister, and my brother stayed over there in Bay City. And so my mom, like, worked 7 days a week, I can remember. And so a lot of times I was left at home alone. I really had to figure stuff out for myself. And I'm not saying my mom wasn't a good mom. Like, she worked her ass off, and she was work every day. She made sure the bills were paid. She made sure that we ate. But something I remember growing up was hearing my aunts, my uncles, people around us say, well, you got to learn the hard way. You got to learn the hard way, or let them learn the hard way. And so I grew up thinking that in order to accomplish anything great, you had to learn the hard way about going about it. And it wasn't until I kind of stepped out of that environment. It was years back, maybe, I don't know, maybe 7, 8 years ago, 9 years maybe. I stepped out of that environment of thinking, and I really didn't know what I was getting into, but I knew growing up that I was always real stubborn. Like, if you told me something, I would want to find out for myself. So I came across information, and I remember the first time I was seeking out knowledge. I met up with this multi-millionaire, and I was asking him these questions. And he says, you know what, if you really want to learn, let's set up a meeting, but there's going to be a fee for that meeting. I'll have my secretary get with you. I set up the meeting. I was like scared, because I was like, man, I'm gonna pay this guy money, like, for what? Like, what am I getting? I don't even know. But I took the risk. Like, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it. Like, what do I have to lose? Like, and that meeting actually changed the way I was thinking forever. And I remember sitting down for hours, just going over a bunch of details in my head of what I wanted for my life. And it was almost as like I was in a therapy session or something, because they were just getting all these, they were asking me all these questions and getting all this information out of me, putting it down on paper. But what I didn't realize, what was happening is, like, my ideas were being crystallized on paper versus just trying to figure it out in my head. And once it was on paper, then it was like, okay, you know what? Now we got to figure out an action plan for your life. That was like the game changer for me. So now I have this game plan for my life. And the awesome thing about it is it's kind of like a game, and solving the problems, and the cool thing about it is that the problems that we're facing today, someone's already, like, conquered that. They've already passed that. They've already beat that. They have beat that and then gone further to the next challenge. And so once you start seeking out information, it's awesome, man. It's a different experience. You just want more and more of it. So They would always say, oh, if you're gonna learn, you're gonna learn the hard way. That what I learned is what I really learned from that is that that's how poor people think. Poor people tell their kids, if you want to learn, you gotta learn the hard way. Rich people teach their kids at a young age. Okay. Rich people tell their kids at a young age, and they teach them to listen. Look, son, I'm gonna show you how to do this. I'm gonna guide you this way. I'm not gonna give you the answer, but I'm gonna guide you. And by me guiding you, you're gonna realize what's going on. And so they don't. I'll give you an example. And I went through this with my kids. My kids were younger. My kids wanted to drive. My kids were 16, 17. Dad, I want to drive. Dad, I want to drive. I want to get a car. They want that at that age. And so, as a poor parent, I could have said, well, figure it out. Like, learn the hard way. But what I had to do was I had to stop and I had to talk to him and say, look, think about, by you driving without a license or with you driving not prepared, let me tell you the consequences of that, and it's gonna stall your life. Well, what do you mean, Dad? Well, if you drive without a license, you're gonna get a ticket for no license. You're gonna get a license. You're gonna get a ticket for no insurance. The car that you're driving might get impounded. Now you have that fine. Now it prolongs from you getting your license. And so the study's shown that kids that are told you have to learn the hard knock life, you got to learn the hard way, you're gonna have to figure it out. They actually, by the time they start their life, they've spent so much money on dumb shit. What I'm talking about, I'm talking about fines. If they get in trouble, probation, just stupid fines and just stuff that delays them being an adult, and so they go into adulthood with all this burden already because they made all these mistakes. And you know what? I'm not saying that that you can't learn that way. I'm saying it takes longer. It takes a lot longer. We want the best for our kids. We want them to be successful. We want them to kind of continue where we stop, whatever, or surpass us, or get where we're at, and so we want to bring them up with us. So, the best thing to do, and what I've done for my kids, is just be there for them, mentor them, share information with them. And if you don't know if your kid, your son, or someone in your environment, coworker, friend, whatever, says, hey, I want to start a business, don't shoot down that dream because you might fear that, or because you don't know how that process works. Let them know, hey man, you should probably seek out a mentor. You should probably seek out some guidance, and if you have to pay for that guidance, pay for it, because it's gonna help your life. The money that you spent, on getting information from somebody, it's not about the money, it's about the information. That knowledge is gonna help you make whatever you spent over and over and over again, because you're gonna have that knowledge of how to overcome your current challenge. And as we go through life, the challenges get bigger. You can set the people set huge challenges, huge, and there's people that have accomplished those challenges already. And so you just got to seek out those people and say, hey, you know what, I read that you bought 3,000 properties. What was the process for that? How did you start? And they're gonna tell you their story. Hey, you know what? Well, I started off with 3 properties, and from 3 I got 4, and before I went to 12, and then after that it was just kind of hard to get money And so I had to seek out other resources, and so that then you're gonna figure out, well, what resources did you learn? Oh, well, I had to, do this kind of different, corporation business and set this up in order to get bigger funding. So now you can already go to the source where they're getting bigger funding and start off at that position instead of starting off in the smaller, the building process, so you could take those big steps. And I think, growing up in school, we were always told, don't be copying people, don't be looking at their paperwork, you're cheating. And so we get into life thinking that we can't do that with business. We think that we can't. You can even copy other businesses. You can say, look, I like the way that business is running. I like the way they're doing business. I like the way that guy, handles his business. I want to copy that guy. I want to make sure. I want to do what he's doing, because what he's doing, it looks like it's working, and I see that it's working, and I see results. So I want to just copy what he's doing. But when we're younger, the poor people were like, you know what, you don't be copying, and you don't do this, you don't do that. And so it puts us like in this box that we have to, that makes us think that we have to figure everything out on our own. And that's not true. That's not true. Seek out, mentors, seek out knowledge, read. I think that's one of the most undervalued resource that we have is this, reading about information that we want to learn. We want, if you can't find a mentor, if you say, man, you know what, I'm not in a position to find a mentor, I'm not in a position to go to pay somebody to help me with my business, I'm not in a position for that. We'll buy a book, go to half price books. There's so much information out there. Start by the stuff that you can do, a podcast, YouTube videos. Like there's different resources now for you to get that information. Don't limit yourself, or don't tell yourself that you don't have the resources to do that, because information is free and knowledge is free. You just got to seek it. So don't get caught up in the whole hard knock life. You got to learn the hard way. My kids are gonna learn the hard way, and they're gonna tough it out. There's gonna be some situations where you gotta let your kids tough it out, and go through that process. And I can I'll share a personal one with you. My daughter, she wants to buy a car, and she's like, Dad, are you gonna buy me a car when I graduate? And I say, well, why can't you buy your own car? And she's like, well, because I'm gonna graduate. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? She's like, well, it'll be cool. And I was like, yeah, well, what'll be even cooler is if you buy your own car, because that's gonna prove you're gonna prove to yourself that you don't need, someone to buy you something. You can earn it yourself, and that's just gonna drive you. That's gonna create something in you that nobody's gonna be able to take away. I said I can give you a car, and you can fulfill that, that emptiness that you're feeling, but that feeling's just gonna only last for so long because you already got the car. I said, but if you work your ass off and you sacrifice going out, you sacrifice nice things to get the car that you want, now you just made yourself a stronger person, and no one can take that away from you. It's just gonna start building from that. So there's ways to let your kids, or let friends or families learn. Hey, you know what? Let them. You can guide them. You don't want to say, oh, well, you're screwed. Figure it out yourself. Guide them through the way. And if you're not sure how to guide them, find someone to guide them for. I mean, there's a lot of parents, a lot of people that I know that when I was growing up that didn't really have, information. They didn't have, you ask them, hey, how do you open a business? I don't know. Why do you want to do that for? That seems like a lot of work. And so sometimes if we're younger or if we're around that environment with I don't knows, people that I don't know, or that's not cool, or that doesn't sound cool, it could bring you down. So you might need to change your environment, and find out and put yourself around people that you ask, hey, how do I open a business? That's a good question. We should try to figure that out. I know some guy that owns a business. We should call him in. We should have dinner. We should meet with him to kind of pick his brain, and we can figure out, get some ideas. So, one thing, like I said, poor people, think that you have to learn the hard way. Rich people know that there's information available, and they seek out information. I wanted to share that with you, that the information is available. So anything that you want to accomplish in your life is possible. It's not going to happen overnight. There's no such thing as an overnight success. But if you commit to putting in the work, every day, and you make that conscious decision, say, this is what I want, this is what I'm going to do, because the multi-millionaire, the billionaire that you see on TV or wherever, we're all the same people. We're all the same people. The only thing that changes that is just information. So seek out information. If there's anything I can do to help y'all out, man, let me know. I appreciate y'all's time. Peace out.